Hey, what's up you guys? So I have a bit of a different video today. It's not a review, but rather a discussion about how I like to clean my Glorious GMMK Pro, which is just my custom mechanical keyboard that I have here. Um, I'm going to show two ways of how I clean it. I do like a weekly wipe down, which is pretty quick and, only takes a few minutes and you should be able to do it pretty easily. But the second way is going to be a more deep clean where I'm actually going to show how I remove the keycaps, exposing the plate beneath where the switches are mounted, and just really getting that nice thorough clean because, we use our keyboard so much and I know we get dust and all types of things on it, so it's really something that would be beneficial to do, every few months or at least once a year if you have the time. So yeah, in case you haven't heard of me, I'm Detective. I like to make tech reviews. But yeah, today we'll be discussing how to clean your mechanical keyboard. Stay tuned. So the way I like to do a quick clean, usually once a week of the keyboard is just take a damp, warm damp paper towel, and I'll take this is just some 70% rubbing alcohol. I'll just spray it onto the paper towel. Definitely don't spray anything on the keyboard itself. Don't try and get too much water or anything on it. That's why it's fine if this is just damp, and what the alcohol is going to do is help cut through any grease or anything that might be on the keyboard. So I'll just spray the paper towel once. It's already damp, so the water does a good job at getting through, getting most of the material that might be on the keycap off, but the alcohol will help, agitate whatever's on it and get it off a bit easier. Um, and yeah, just wipe off the surface and the edges of the keyboard. If you really want, you could try and, like a piece of floss, get like the paper towel nice and narrow and get it in between. But this does pretty well at getting, the surface of the keycaps, the part that you're going to touch the most, clean. And what's nice about the rubbing alcohol is that it'll disinfect it to an extent. I wouldn't spray too much onto it because depending on the type of keycaps you have, I'd be careful using too much rubbing alcohol and maybe not using 91%. I'd stick with the 70% or even the 50%. But the whole point is to just spray enough to, help cut through the dust, not enough to maybe discolor your keycaps. Now these are PBT keycaps, so they're pretty resilient to scratching and probably alcohol as well, rubbing alcohol as well. If you have ABS keycaps, like a high quality GMK set or anything, anything like that, I'd really be a little more conservative on how much rubbing alcohol I use. But yeah, that's a nice quick clean that it definitely helps. These are lighter keycaps, so you can't really tell. If they were black, you definitely see how dirty they were and how much cleaner they can get just with a simple, damp paper towel and some rubbing alcohol. But, just you're gonna have to trust me on this one, or maybe if you have a black keyboard at home, you could try it yourself and see what a difference that makes. So now the second cleaning is definitely going to be a more thorough one. It takes quite a bit longer, so stay tuned for that. So for the more thorough cleaning, you're going to have to remove all of your keycaps. So I have my keycap puller here. They come in all types of different styles, but these wire ones are pretty common. And just have a little bin here that I could throw my keycaps into. So, just got all the keycaps off, threw them in my bin. I'm actually going to end up washing the keycaps in this bin, so put it off to the side. And I just wanted to show how dirty your keyboard could actually get. The keycaps are kind of deceiving. Although you might clean the surface of them, I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up, but there's, some hair and dust. Again, it's a silver keyboard, so it's not going to show as much as a black, but trust me, I haven't done this in a little while, and I could see in person that there's a good amount of dust and buildup on this. So that's why it's a good idea every now and then just take the keycaps off. And if you really like, I'm gonna actually air dust this off, but I'll also take a Q-tip, wet it a little bit, again with some 70% alcohol, and I'll go in between the switches with the Q-tip. Of course, be careful because the Q-tip will snag on these switches, and then you have all types of little hair that you need to pluck out, and that could be annoying. But just take a Q-tip and go in between. So now that I have all my keycaps in the bin here, I'm just gonna fill it up with hot water, spray some more of the 70% rubbing alcohol in here, as well as some hand soap. This is just some regular antibacterial hand soap. That'll help break down anything that's on the keycaps and really make it easier to, get any dust or crud that's stuck on there off. So yeah, let's do that. Now I've given the keycaps a nice bath, got most of the suds going and really moved it around. You could feel the keycaps, if they are dusty still, they'll be a bit gritty depending on how dirty they are, but I mean, these weren't too dirty. I didn't really feel too much, but giving it a nice swirl will ensure that, they come out clean. So we're just going to drain this, rinse it under some hot water again, make sure there's no soap left over, and yeah, get on to drying. So now that all the keycaps are rinsed off, you gotta dry them. Definitely don't put them back on the keyboard with this much water. I mean, there's water at the bottom of this because I really didn't bother shaking it off too much. But what I like to do is just, wipe them down with a paper towel. And there's actually a good amount of water that accumulates on the inside of them. There isn't going to be much on the outside. That's easy, but the one on the inside, if you tap it, you can see that there's still a solid amount of water inside of each one of these keycaps, and you really don't want to risk getting that onto your switch, into your switch, onto your keyboard's PCB. I mean, if you look at that one, this one had a ton of water in it. So, I mean, there's really two options. You can do this, tap them on a paper towel, wipe off the exterior, get most of the water out that way, or you could let it air dry, which is going to take a solid day, more than overnight, I'd say, just based on how much water is inside of them. But actually a third option is that you can use a compressed air, or if you have like an electric version of these, you can just spray some air into them, and that gets a good amount of water out. I would say as long as there aren't huge drops of water, you should be fine, but of course, put them back on your keyboard at your own risk. You don't want to risk shorting out your keyboard or your computer or anything like that. So just to be safe, I'd make sure that there isn't any water inside of them. So yeah, just gotta go through. This is definitely the most time consuming part, whether you decide to dry them yourself by hand or let it air dry. This drying the keycaps definitely takes up the most time. But yeah, that's basically the last step. After this, we put them back on the keyboard, and our keyboard is like good as new. So I've got all the keycaps dried and laid out here. I sprayed them with the compressed air after patting them dry with the paper towel, and this paper towel was completely dry when I first started, so now you can see it's completely saturated. You can really get an idea of how much water is stored inside the keycaps, especially where the stem goes of your switch, that middle section right there. Water likes to get in there and really stay, so it's important to make sure that you get as much water as you can out of these, and I honestly suggest just waiting, letting them air dry completely, making this, an overnight ordeal, and just being safe rather than sorry, because you really don't want to mess up your keyboard or your PC potentially. So yeah, once again, just make sure they're completely dry before you decide to put them on the keyboard. Lo and behold, we are all done. Keycaps are all back on the keyboard, and now I can thankfully say we have a very clean keyboard. Again, you can't really tell too much. Letter keycaps, hard to see the dust, but trust me, this keyboard is much cleaner than what we started with. So I'll have a few links in the description below, some keycap puller, compressed air that I used. But yeah, those are pretty common things. You guys probably have them laying around, especially if you have a custom keyboard or set of keycaps. But yeah, that was how to thoroughly clean as well as quickly clean your keyboard. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, I'd really appreciate it. And if you learned something in the video, then please leave me a like. Alrighty, see you in the next one. Bye.